All right, Chapter 10, Death of Humanitar. In the days when the El Shaban were gathered in war hosts, Humanitar departed with his household and the household of Encheti to dwell in the land between the great river of sweet waters and the bitter waters of the west, and they built an encampment there. They were in a land where some men spoke as Humanitar spoke, and though there were men of blood with them, the people of the land let Humanitar and those with him dwell in peace among them. Because in those days men were inflicted with a nahana. When the task set upon him was nigh finished, Humanitar knew that his days in the land of the living were not to be many more. Therefore, he betook himself into a place of solitude. There he fasted for many days, casting his spirit that it might commune with the Father of the gods. But the voice of God remained silent. Then he left that place, going into a cave, where he dwelt in the half-light for many days. But again there was no response from the Father of the gods. So Humanitar departed from the cave and returned to his people, where he was heard to say, "Woe, for truly my God has forsaken me and remains dumb against my pleadings. Yet I have done all the things told me before times and written in the great book. Wherefore have I failed?" Then he went apart from the people and slept alone, for his heart was heavy. But behold, in the night he had a dream. In it he saw the sacred symbols spread out upon a cloth of white linen, and each was displayed according to its form. As he gazed upon them and numbered them, each by its own number, an ass came and ate up the sacred symbols, and lo, the ass became a falcon. Then as he looked, the falcon became a cow, and between its horns was a crown of silver and a crown of gold, and the cow spoke to Humanitar, saying, "Drink of my milk and anoint your eyes with it. Thus they will be opened, and you will see." Humanitar drank the milk and anointed his eyes, and then he awoke. Remembering the dream and being wise, he needed no other to interpret it for him. So then he straightway did the things which had to be done, about which those with understanding will know, and departed from the people. Humanitar went out towards a place of solitude, about 1 day's journey distant. Having gone about half the way, he became weary under the noonday sun, and so sat down beneath a tree to rest in its shade. Then, as he drowsed, behold, a great flash of light came down from out of heaven, and it smote the ground before him. He heard a great noise like a mighty whip crack, and he was blinded. Then he heard a voice saying, "Behold, I am here, the God of gods and the God of men in the beginning." Hearing this, Humanitar fell upon his face and cried, "O Great One, I am your servant." Then God said, "Wherefore would you open a door unto me? Because the race of man has been defiled, and men are no longer with me. Am I not the withdrawn one, the hidden one?" Humanitar, still on the ground, answered, "O Father of the gods, I, your servant, would know your will. I have a task nigh finished, and seek to know whether it is well in your sight, or whether it is a thing done without your blessing." God answered Humanitar, saying, "Is this not a sacred thing, a heritage saved and handed down from the days when men walked with me? Therefore it is a good thing, though care must be taken to ensure it is not disclosed to the eyes of profane men. The concoctions which, when properly compounded, will enable men to span the spheres, can also, used otherwise, give men near unlimited potency and extreme pleasure with womankind. Therefore, such things must be carefully safeguarded, for in the hands of lesser men they will certainly be abused. But let it all be as it is written. Do with it as you have been instructed. You call upon me as the Father of the gods, nor do you err in this. Yet I am the hidden God, the God of secret manifestation, the wrong God, the betrayed God, the disappointed God. I am the God who sought to give love divine to men by making them my heirs, making them partakers of divinity, co-creators with me. But men spurned their birthright not through wickedness alone, but through their weakness and love of pleasure. Therefore, the love once offered cannot now be displayed in all its glory. It cannot be revealed in its beauty. It must now be leavened with severity, and chastisement. This so that those who are the inheritors of divinity may return to it with undiminished powers, but purged of their weakness and love of unprofitable pleasure. This you should know, that men may know. Divinity of itself is not a created thing and cannot be bestowed as a gift. It comes as the crown of achievement. I, the Almighty God, who, by taking thought, can recreate 10,000 worlds, say this. Men have said, as they will say throughout the ages, why, if God be almighty, can he not create perfection immediately? Why does he not create beings having the knowledge of divine love forthwith? Why have earth with all its trials and tribulations? Know this, what appears to you as ages in time is to me but a flash of thought in a moment of eternity. I breathed in the hosts of earth and the spheres were not. I breathed out and the hosts of earth and spheres were. I breathe in and they are no more. All things exist within the Eternal One, and that which men know as the span of time is the act of creation. Mark the flight of an arrow from the hands of a bowman. It flies from the bent bow, time passes, then it finds its mark. But to me, the arrow leaves the bow and strikes the mark together. Distance, time, and change are not with me. Once I, your God, was not apart from man, my offspring. Now I am veiled from his sight, not because I have willed it so, but because man has chosen to bring this about. The barrier between us grows even more dense as man wantonly spurns his birthright. Henceforth, it may be penetrated only by long and arduous preparations, and even then those who do so must know the key. I come to you not because of your reparations, but because your God is ever ready to incline towards men. Though there is this barrier between us, it is not impervious to the sincere prayers of the pure heart. This men should know. As for you, your days are numbered. You are now no more than the basket holding the seeds, which will be strewn and sown by another hand. Many things of which I have spoken are not for the ears of men, for such knowledge, freely bestowed, would not benefit them. Other things are beyond their present understanding. Let these, therefore, be recorded unto generations of men yet unborn. Men are now as children and must learn again as children, being taught childish tales. Therefore, go hence, go to Enchedi, and tell him of these things. Say also that his God, I who am, chooses him as the sower of seeds. Let him know that I who am will guide his steps and will open a door in the barrier, that he may hear my voice. Let your eyes now see again, and behold, I am who I am. Then Humanitar left the place where he had seen the face of the Father of Gods, returning to the encampment of his people, which had been set up in the midst of a pasture land. When he drew nigh, he saw cattle lying beside the running waters, and men were moving among them. The cattle were dead and their bellies swollen. Men came up to Humanitar and cried, Behold, the sustenance of our children is taken from their mouths. The cattle have eaten a herb that burns as fire in their bellies, so they crave water, drinking until they become overfilled, and their bellies burst from within, before they die. Who is this whom you call Father of the gods? Perchance the gods do have a father, but where is the God who protects men? Where is the God who is the Father of men? While you leave us to pay homage to the Exalted One, who may concern himself with the affairs of the gods, but has no concern for the welfare of men, our cattle die. Because of your words, we have neglected to build an altar to Shemeken, or to pay homage to Yahunah. Truly, we are men who have been deceived and led astray. We are men who have walked with their eyes turned upward and fallen into quicksand. Tell us then, O wise one, who are the gods of men and of cattle? This filled the heart of Humanitar with ire, and he cried out to the wrathful people. Wherefore do you cry out to me and seek some god to come to your aid? There is but one God, and these that you call gods are but manifestations of his members. Why do you seek to cast blame on God for your own neglect? He has not relinquished his hold on all creatures that serve man and given them into your hands. Behold, the beasts of the forest and wilderness. Do they eat of herb that poisons? Are they not able to know the herb that is harmful and the herb that nourishes, the herb that heals in sickness and the herb that brings death? Who taught them this wisdom? There are creatures under the care of God, which know that the slothful care of man. Therefore, they are safe from the deadly herb and pass it by. But you, having taken these poor beasts to benefit from them, are solely responsible for their well-being. They are your responsibility. The Father of God made cattle as he made all creatures, and while he ruled their ways, they were protected from the deadly herbs. Then men took them unto themselves so they might serve them. They yielded milk and cheese to nourish them, and firm meat to sustain them. Their hides covered them warmly as they slept. These things the cattle gave, not unto God, but unto man. Therefore, who should protect and care for them? He who benefits or he who does not? Do you expect God to herd your cattle, to keep them from the deadly herb while you slumber in the shade? Is this not a just reward for your slothfulness? You know that the herb is deadly, but these cattle, the dumb servants of man, know it not, for they are delivered into your care. Would you take all they give while denying them the diligence of your protection? What kind of men are you who cry, Woe unto us, whom to God has forsaken, who wring their hands, saying, What God shall we seek to aid us in our self-wrought calamity? Arise like men to shoulder the burden of your own slothfulness and lack of diligence. Never fear that God will fail man, for if Never fear that God will fail man, for if man does the duties of man, God will do the duties of God. For it is man who falls short. It is man who seeks to take more than he gives. Surely whatever man takes for his benefit, also comes his responsibility. God decrees that man may take whatever he will for his own use, but in doing so, he must also assume responsibility for its care and rightful use. Is this unjust? The men said no more. Humanitar then made the men draw the cattle up out of the water, and some which had eaten of the deadly herb were saved. He then divided the pastures and sent men to seek out the places of the deadly herb and cut it from the soil. One day Humanitar was going about the encampment, and he came upon a man burying his newly born daughter, and Humanitar was wrathful at the man for such a deed. It was an abomination performed by the sand wanderers and the wild men who dwelt in the wilderness. Taking the child, Humanitar brought it to the wife of Encheti, who saved it so it lived. It was named Mahat, meaning pure of heart, but because of the sand which had filled her eyes, she was blind. The strangers about the encampment became enraged against Humanitar because of what he had done. Also, because he had struck the father of the child, so he bled. They demanded that the blood be requited. They said, This is an unjust deed. For he who buries a daughter because he lacks sustenance for her does no wrong in our eyes. Is it not better that she be buried in the ground out of sight than kept with disgrace? Is it not for the father to decide whether a daughter should live? Has a woman a soul of her own? Is she not no more than the maker of the body, while the soul is given into the keeping by man? The strangers about the encampment were not so many, while those with Humanitar were many and strong, but he dealt justly with those claiming payment for the blood. They were given a piece of silver and a calf that was ready for the slaughter. Thus Mahat came into the household of Enchedi. Humanitar was sitting with Enchedi and said to him, I have spoken to you of the happening while I sat beneath a tree in a place of solitude, and of matters which you should know in order to be wise. Into your keeping have been given the treasures I have wrought by my own hands, and you are well instructed in the sacred things and the mysteries. You have a destiny upon you, which may not be fulfilled in this place, while the sustenance obtainable here declines day by day. Therefore, let us depart and go a long journey by way of the bitter waters. For should we go by way of the forest or through the great wilderness, we may not live. Our flocks and herds can be driven before us, for the road is wide and well watered. Let us not delay in this place, for already there is a restlessness among the people here. So they departed from that place, journeying towards the bitter waters, and when they came there, they turned southward, continuing until they came to Besor. There they encamped, for the death sickness had come upon Humanitar. As he lay upon a couch of sheepskins, he called for Enchedi, but he did not come, for he had gone before them to spy out the land. However, Enchedi did come before Humanitar passed from earth, and Humanitar knew he was there and called him to his side. Then Humanitar said, My hour is at hand, but I am without fear, knowing I go not to a place where men eat dust, where all is darkness and gloom. The fears of my youth are but shadows having no substance. They flee before the pure light of truth. Upon you there is a great destiny. May you reach out and grasp that which your heart desires, and having attained it, use it to deliver all men from the darkness of ignorance. Go forth like the sun who throws his rays down like a net over the land to enlighten it. Go to a land where the honest man will be made rich and the dishonest man impoverished, for the balances must be adjusted so that riches cease to be the reward of dishonesty and deceit. Go to a land where these holding places of power and position will stand forth as examples of goodness and honesty, where none but the worthy occupy high positions, where those who have possessions and estate use these to succor the needy and resist the strength of those who oppress the weak and unprotected. And Enchedi said, But where is this land, and how shall I find it? Humanitar answered, Were there such a place, what good purpose would you serve by going there? What you will have to do would have been done already by another. Humanitar died and was buried deep within the ground, and none knows his tomb. May he live forever and dwell with the Father of the gods whom he served. These things concerning Humanitar have been written many times, but the copies have always been true. That which follows has been added on, but when made and by whom it is impossible to discover. Humanitar is buried in the land of Philistia. Is this Okechia? The father of Humanitar was Nimrod of the twin bows. This I doubt, and it was not stated. The stone of Machpelah is at Bethgul even now. The words on the tomb of Yodel are, He died because he was not as other men. I, Frustronius, have seen it. Could this be when 80 generations have passed? Men of this race are unsound witnesses. The Samarites say Yodel was not mortal man. This we know in truth. The deeds of Humanitar and Yodel are more fully told in the tales of the Hittites. The shield of Enchedi was called the Big Shaker, and painted upon it was a likeness of the mud-hopping bird. It was the bird that taught men writing, for it left mud marks, which men first read as omens, later forming them into signs which could be read. They are not as ours, though men among us can read them. And Chetty taught the mystery of metals to Okchia, a land of beer, bread, and milk. He was renowned in the twinlands of light. Mahat, the blind one who remained virgin, guided Ancheti to this land while yet a child. She was filled with the inner light of wisdom and saw with the Spirit. When he knew not which way to go, her father sat her on the ground and held a breast feather before her, upon which she blew. He went whichever way it inclined and was never led astray. Later, she used this method when settling disputes and giving judgments. She was greatly honored, for in the whole land there was no wiser woman. We who make these writings indestructible have abandoned the book of Enchedi, for it has not of value to those who follow us, and this is a work of much labor. It contains laws for a people living in a land called Okchia, who must have been less than barbarians, for he forbade such things as the eating of children newly born, the mixing and drying of their blood for eating and uniting brothers, and the hanging up of women in travail. Also the cutting of women's private parts and the deballing of men.